My name is Lucy and I want to talk to you about a permaculture design process I've gone through in order to design a composting system in my new garden. That's the brief. The dates were basically I've observed from October 2020 through to March 2021. I surveyed the sun and the shade, so where is it sunny and where is it shady. With compost, I prefer to put the compost myself in the more shady area, although there is sun, as you can see here today, because I like to keep the sunny areas for my plants. I also observed that there is a lade, so a waterway at the end of the garden just behind me there. And I also observed the neighbours' views from the different areas, so those are the different main sectors of the site. I observed resources, so I found a big pile of pallets. I found a bucket in which I can put the weeds to soak them. I found a neighbour's green waste. I've got 3 neighbours who offered me a pile of, well, you can see down here, a pile of, here. They've donated this into the garden. They're also willing to, well, they really want to give me the grass cuttings. And I also thought about money, so I'm not wanting to invest much money in this. And there's lots of sticks in the garden, so there's plenty of resources there for chipping them. People involved, myself, my kids, neighbours, and in due course I hope to have sort of workaway or woofer helping out. I looked at the knowledge base in terms of other composting systems. I've been observing composting systems for years actually in a lot of detail, which is one at the Concrete Gardens. I also surveyed the plants here, such as ground elder, couch grass, vegetables, you can see daffodils and snowdrops. We also have New Zealand flatworm, and other animals I'm concerned about in terms of compost would be like rats and mice. So we do have the lade, as I mentioned, so that's so I did some analysis, so thinking about the zones. So the zones of use, we don't want to put the compost right next to the house because it's long enough that I wouldn't want to be wheelbarrowing everything over there, and I'd prefer it to be in this sort of second part of my garden, which is away from the first, in order that other people, like neighbours, would access it. It's more sort of, yeah. So that's sort of zones 2, I would say. In terms of sectors, the sun, the shade, the neighbours' views, the lade, the rat. And we also looked at the pallets. I looked in a lot of detail at the pallets. There were lots of pallets of all different sort of shapes and sizes. The most common was 1.2 metres by 1 metre. So I picked 4 that would be that size, so that it could be a square. There are also different weights, so some of them are really heavy, some are quite light. So the one for the door I picked to be a light one. They also have different sizes of gaps between different pallets, so I was looking at which one would be easier to patch. I compared different options as well, as another analysis. So looked at the 3-bay sort of open system, which we had in our allotment, which has some great positives, dead easy to make. Negatives, it doesn't get as hot because it's not insulated, protected from the wind. And it can get messy because the bits that you put in the compost can get spread about the garden. Looked at the Dalek, but since I don't have one, it's made of plastic and the volume isn't so big. Looked at the hot box, which we had a hot box made in Gatehouse School, but it had a lid and that made it actually quite difficult to access because you couldn't get right in there with your fork or spade. Looked at the ethics, so the ethics really help to decide. So the ethics of earth care, it's all about building soil and promoting, good soil, so actual caring for the earth, as well as reducing negative environmental impact. Other people are putting their grass cuttings in landfill sites, so I'll reduce that. People care, thinking about obviously the compost that we make will be good quality, and I'll put that on our vegetables and fruit, and so it will make better food for us. so people care. Also, like convenience of making it sited well within the zones and well, especially the zones, so making it in a good location is people care. And fair share, again, thinking about a fair share between ourselves and other people. So yeah, so that just what I was saying about reducing our negative environmental impact is an example of fair share, so not putting grass cuttings into the landfill site. Main principles I consider, compost is all about producing no waste. It's about cycling nutrients into as locally as possible in the system. It's about using and valuing renewable resources such as wood, but also the contents that will be put in. And everything gardens. Because everything that you do in composting, you're creating lovely soil which will help the other plants to grow. The resources also, we thought a lot about the resources that we'll be able to get to fill up. Will we be able to fill up a bay as big as this? Well, with 3 gardens worth of grass clippings, not my own, I don't have grass. I think that will work. So looked at the design process. So now considered location for quite a long time, and eventually settled on this corner here of the garden. That is because over here is one entrance where the cherry tree is. That's one way that we can walk in, so the neighbours can walk in along that path and still access it. And this is the other entrance to my house here. So you can see that will be another access point. So it's kind of midway between these. It's easy for me to access in terms of putting my vegetable waste in. Unlike, for example, right up the top corner of this garden, which will be much harder to access it on a regular basis with wheelbarrows full of stuff. So what I've decided on is to have one enclosed bay and one open bay next to it. Often people talk about a 3-bay system in which they have one where you're putting your current green waste, one where it settles for a couple of months, and then one where it's just the stuff that's ready to go. I've never had a need for that third one because I would just put the compost directly. When it's ready to go, it goes onto the beds. So, so an enclosed bay. So an enclosed bay next to an open bay. The advantage of an enclosed bay is that it will enable the compost to get properly hot. Disadvantage is it's a lot more work. So one enclosed bay, so that's where all the initial waste, when we put it directly in the waste will go, the greens and browns, will go into the enclosed bay. And the open bay just because it's less work. And by then the most sort of stuff that still looks like food, it doesn't matter so much if that's getting spread about in the garden because it won't be looking like food anymore. It won't look like rubbish if it gets blown about the garden. So next part was like, how are we going to open and close it? So we've got 3 solid pallets. What I've done is taken one pallet, such as this one, and kept it whole, and then taken another pallet and taken it apart just with a hammer. I took it apart and I put nails and just hammered it just to patch it, and that will keep it a lot more enclosed, a lot more warm. I did that on the 3 sides. You can see they're all slightly different depending on what bits of wood I had lying around. That one's packed. And to attach it, I have put corner braces in the corners, as you can see, as well as tying it onto the fencing with rope around itself. So a lid, I decided to put no lid. I just tried sticking these on, but we're going to go for carpets just to place it on the top, so that we can get right in there and dig. And over here I will place a soak bucket for weeds. Weeds will be put here, but in a bucket full of water, so that they die, and I'll be able to put them directly, without much effort, directly into there once I've soaked them for a few weeks. And then we'll have the second open bay will go here using pallets. I've got the pallet for that lying there. The implementation. So, as I said, I've been doing the design process as SADIMET. Implementation now, We did survey, we did analyse, we did design, now we're implement. Okay, so this first day we cleared and flattened, and I had my friend Katie helping me with that. On the second day was, actually there was loads of this corrugated stuff being dumped, as well as loads of glass, so that was a big job. The second day was pallet deconstruction and patching the sides of the pallets. And the third day my two children helped me with sawing and drilling, and basically making that compost bay. And the fourth day I will make the second bay. Things I was thinking of in terms of implementation, in terms of when to do it. I wanted to do it in dry weather because of electric tools. Wanted to involve my children in some, but not too much. I didn't want them to feel like they had to do the whole thing, but that they would be involved in a completion, which is nice to get them involved, maybe at the beginning and at the end, and do some of the extra work yourself in the middle, considering the tools that I would need and gathering all the resources, including one of the things I haven't mentioned in the design is the consideration of just deciding how to open it. So we have here a stable door. This I learned from, I also surveyed the YouTube video, and then we have here a latch, and that's how we open this. So seeing how we will open it, I will move this wheelbarrow. The other thing, the tweak that I will add is just to add a post there to make it hold open that second door. So here you go, and you can see it just opening and closing, and that will keep it really nice and solid. Yeah, opening and closing. Maintenance, well, the whole design is about the ease of maintenance, hence building an enclosed bay so I don't have to pick up compost from around the rest of the garden. Really, it should be a relatively low maintenance system, and will be easy for me to turn because I'll be able to get right in there. Evaluation, well, I have a compost thermometer so that I can evaluate whether it gets hot. In terms of cost, it cost me about £10 just for the corner braces, latches, hinges and screws. What went well? Yeah, I think what went well, the whole thing, I'm quite proud of it actually. I think that the doors opening is a really nice touch. I think that the engagement by the neighbours has been really exciting, because I didn't know they would be excited about compost, but they aren't for themselves, but they're very happy to donate to me because they're very nice. What was difficult, there was definitely a difficult moment with the kids. Someone was hungry, and yeah, we had to have a lunch break, and then came back and everything was fine and hunky-dory. So tweaks, yeah, if the pallets rot in due course, I think some of the pallets will rot, but we can reuse those metal pieces just by unscrewing them. Also, if for any reason I decided to move them, it would be pretty easy. I didn't put stakes in the end. I was thinking of putting stakes in to hold the pallets, so you would put the stake down there. That would be harder to move them. So all that we would have to do is untie the rope and use a drill to unscrew. So it'd be really quite simple. The last point on, so that's SADIMET, and the last point is just some reflection. I'm quite excited about the potential of using the video to explain how I did actually think through SADIMET without writing any of it on paper, because I just have so much screen time at the moment. It feels really important for me to be doing the thinking and designing as much as possible actually out in the garden, and so that was really enjoyable. And obviously for other designs are written and typed up and drawn proper maps, so I've been working on other designs at the same time, but this was urgent. Just needed a place to put this stuff that people were offering me, so as well as my own kitchen waste. So really, excited, and exciting to be doing this process and to be sharing it with you. Thank you.